NFL trade deadline takes place at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Currently, it is in the wee hours of the morning. Polls just opened up here in my area in Cleveland, Ohio. Za'Darius Smith just got traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Detroit Lions. To give you a little bit of timeline on that, we also have coaching firings, of course, with Dennis Allen, gone from the Saints. Luke Getsy, Raiders offensive coordinator, has also been fired. We'll discuss all of that as we get into the recap here. Just to let you know, I did go 10-5 picking games in the money line. I also went 3 for 5 in best bets. Best bets, man, they could have gone either way. I mean, I hit New England by half a point. They could have won the game. They could have lost it against Tennessee. I hit the Rams -1.5 with that overtime win against Seattle. And then the late throw by Sam Darnold into the end zone for Minnesota. I got that 5.5 backdoor cover there against the Indianapolis Colts. The Chicago Bears I miss. I don't even want to talk about. And then Buffalo defeated Miami, but that was a back and forth game, more than I expected. Miami covered the 6.5. I had Buffalo, who again win by 3, not by 7, so they did not cover. Let's start with Thursday Night Football, where I was saying, it's a weird game. It's a short week. And this year, Thursday Night Football, short weeks, it has favored the home team most of the time. Houston was without Nico Collins, obviously their first game without Stephon Diggs, who was out for the year. It was Tank Dell, it was John Mechie. But the storyline here was the Jets' defensive line, of course, led by Hassan Reddick, who was getting more in game shape. Quinn Williams. I just thought they took apart that Houston offensive line, and really until the fourth quarter, this game was a slop fest. Aaron Rodgers did not get anything going, obviously, in the first half until that crazy catch by Garrett Wilson, which, if it wasn't for the Devontae Smith catch against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday, giving it a run for its money, that may be the catch of the year, in my opinion, in the NFL. That was insane to be able to get 1 foot down and then that shin down before his knee went out of bounds for that to be a touchdown. Could have been a catalyst. Again, I say it every week, right? The Jets, every time you get a win, every time they play well. Now Davante Adams got into the end zone on last Thursday night. We all say, could this be a catalyst for the New York Jets to go on a run, to get back in it? The AFC wildcard teams right now, the Chargers, very good team. Denver is inconsistent. We know Cincinnati is obviously trying to get back in it, but they've had a down year. Indianapolis and Jacksonville seem out of it. Obviously, Cleveland's out of it. Pittsburgh's tough schedule down the stretch, starting with this game this weekend at Washington. Will they be able to sustain their success? Miami, in my opinion, is basically out of it with their loss to Buffalo. So, is there an opportunity for the Jets? Yeah. Um, Listen, I think the Texans are going to win this division by default. Their division is bad. Their division is really bad. But CJ Stroud has not played great this year, and they're winning games, and they're 6-3, but they have not played, I don't think, a complete football game all last year, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Philadelphia Eagles from a year ago when they started 10-1, and then the bottom just fell out of it. I'm not going to say the bottom's going to fall out of it in Houston. I think Nico Collins being back will help. Will Anderson, obviously, and Stingley, the corner out there, leading that young, hungry defense. But again, CJ Stroud, in my opinion, has not looked like the same quarterback all year long. Okay, how about Chargers Browns? Because the Chargers, they just annihilated the Browns 27-10. I mean, it wasn't even close for Cleveland. This is what you get, right? You get one good game, Jameis. You get one bad game, Jameis. I called the Chargers. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew I should have bet them. No Browns fans. Now Za'Darius Smith is out the door to Detroit. Obviously, Amari Cooper is already out the door to Buffalo. The Browns are not going anywhere. Maybe when DTR comes back, they give DTR a shot to see what they have. in him because this season's over for the Browns. Chargers just take care of business. And again, this is a football team who they can run the football. They're playing great defense. Quentin Johnson scored a touchdown. Len McConkey starting to come on. So those wide receivers are getting better as the year goes on. Chargers look like the team exactly who I thought they would be going into the year. I should have bet this one too. I should have knew it. It was a bad spot for Denver, right? Baltimore coming off that bad loss to Cleveland the week before. I picked Baltimore to win the game. Lamar Jackson comes out and has another spectacular MVP-esque performance. He has now passed Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger. Yes, he's passed all three of those names in perfect passer rating games. Of course, the perfect QBR rating of 158.3. Lamar Jackson has had four of those in his career. All three of those guys I just mentioned, Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, they all had three each their entire career. So just to show you what Lamar Jackson's capable of on any given, Sunday. Zay Flowers obviously had a big day. Denver was very aggressive early. They missed some fourth down opportunities and just was not a good day. This is what Denver's been all year long. Some weeks they're good, some weeks they're not very good. Okay, I already alluded to it. That was the last game that Luke Getsy called as the Raiders offensive coordinator. Joe Burrow threw for 5 touchdowns. He looked like the best he had all year long. He was finding tight ends everywhere. Gesicki, Sample, Chase Brown out of the backfield. They put up 41 points, and yet Jamar Chase did not score a touchdown. So in that respect, a little bit weird for Cincinnati, but this is a Bengals team who they have really beat up on bad teams all year long, right? Outside of New England week one, they did beat the Giants. They did beat Cleveland. They have now beat Vegas. They beat Carolina. So those are their 4 wins this year. Carolina, who obviously has 2 wins after beating the Saints, Cleveland, who has 2 wins, the Giants, who has 2 wins, and Vegas, who has 2 wins. So, they should have beat New England week one. They should have beat Kansas City week two. Should have beat Baltimore week five. Now, this Thursday night clash between Cincinnati and Baltimore in Baltimore is a huge game because basically, when it comes down to it, if the Bengals lose the game, their AFC North contention, they can forget about it. They should be looking forward to the wild card spot. And if they can get in, we know Joe Burrow's famous expression that they have to win 7 out of their last 9 games to get into the playoffs. And obviously, if they win, in my opinion, they're right back in the thick of it in the AFC North. Vegas, again, we talked about it. They moved off Devontae Adams. Desmond Ritter came in at the end of the game because Gardner Minshew was just bad. Aiden O'Connell was obviously still out. Vegas has no identity. This team is swimming for sharks, and they'll be looking for a quarterback in next year's draft. Okay, in a game basically for the battle for a top three pick, Tennessee beat New England 2017, which New England's more happy about the fact they lost than Tennessee is more happy about the fact that they won, because neither of these two teams are the franchise quarterback. Drake May made the play of the game in this game on the last play of the game. Drake May, I hate to say it, man, Drake May's looked pretty good. He's got nothing to work with. They're not running the ball with Ramondre Stevenson barely. I mean, Drake May's pretty much leading them in rushing. They're just throwing the ball all over the yard with not much to work with. And he's standing in there and he's making big plays. Will we turn the football over? Yes, we saw it at the end of the game. Tennessee obviously gets a big pick. Um, and Tennessee's not a very good football team. But at the end of the day, I think New England has some hope here that they have found their next, franchise signal caller after Tom Brady. It was not Mac Jones, but from what we've seen on Drake May so far, he looks good. Put some talent around him with that New England defense. And New England in a couple years, you never know. They may need a new head coach. I'm not sure about Gerard Mayo, but right now I feel better about their distant future than I do about the Titans. Okay, I talked about this Miami Buffalo game. This game was back and forth. Miami was up 10-6 at halftime. Buffalo again, for whatever reason, another slow start in the second half, and then They go 4 for 4 in scoring drives in the second half, 3 touchdowns and a field goal, and obviously the game-winning kick there by Tyler Bass. Miami, they got some things going. Tyreek Hill was shut down in the first half. He ended up getting going in the second half. Jalen Waddle made a big catch in the end zone to tie the game at 27 with a little bit over a minute left. From what I saw, and there was a play where Kevin Arwin hilariously said, "Oh, there goes Tua on the run and sliding at first." It did seem like Buffalo was a little bit hesitant to tackle Tua in the open field. They did not have a lot of pressure around Tua all day long. Again, I don't think the Dolphins' season would have been saved by that victory either. I think their season, for all intents and purposes, is over. They got a hard schedule here. Um, and obviously just the loss of Tua. Their offense does not look the same. Buffalo owns Miami. Miami gave them a better fight than I thought initially. Obviously, I think Miami was playing desperate with their season on the line. Buffalo wins at 30-27. Commanders, they squeak by. The spread was 3.5 to 4. They win by 5. This was a typical Commanders Giants game where, Daniel Jones, by the way, at one point in the third quarter was 4 for 6 for 0 yards and a touchdown pass. Yes, you heard that right. 4 for 6 for 0 yards and a touchdown pass. Giants are a sad football team. Their defense is good. They keep them in games. Jane Daniels made enough plays. And no matter the result of the Commanders Steelers game this coming Sunday, or obviously Philly at Dallas, we'll get to Dallas here in a minute. That Commanders Eagles game in week 11 in Philly is going to set the tone for who the leader in the NFC East is. And I'll be talking to my Commanders buddy, Austin Arnold, about it next week. Okay, the Saints are who I thought they were. They started off 2-0, and I said maybe I was wrong about the team. No, I was right. The Saints started off 2-0. They lost 7 in a row. They don't have a quarterback. They no longer have a coach. Their roster is old. Alvin Kamara is really their only player known on offense, especially after Chris Olave went down on a hospital ball by Derek Carr that Michael Thomas is reaming people about on X, basically taking shots at Derek Carr. But I love it that Carolina won this game. I love it that they had the same record as the Saints. I love it that they bounced back from their week 1 trouncing because it just feels good for Bryce Young. I did not expect Bryce Young. I say it every week. I didn't think Bryce Young was going to be great in the NFL. I thought he'd be okay. I didn't think he'd be awful. And for the first whatever, you know, give or take 20 something starts of his young career, he looked like he didn't belong in the league. And so for him to play as good as he did, bouncing back from that benching when they went to Andy Dalton, for him to get that victory for the Panthers, good for the Panthers. Saints are in hell. And they're going to be irrelevant here over the next few years. I don't care who their coach is. They need to get rid of a lot of players on that roster. They need to go find a quarterback. Spencer Rattler, from what I've seen the past few weeks, I thought he had good potential. Obviously, he fell in the draft for a reason. Yeah, that team's an unmitigated disaster. Speaking of an unmitigated disaster, folks, I think I nailed the NFC East this year. I said Philly and Washington were going to be the two best teams in the division. The Washington I thought was going to be better than I had originally thought. I said Dallas was just going to miss the playoffs, and I said the Giants were going to be awful. And some people thought the Cowboys were going to be the first team in the NFC East to repeat since the 2004 Philadelphia Eagles. And I said, no, no. I said Dallas is under 9.5. They made no offseason additions. They're very CeeDee Lamb dependent, and they're very Micah Parsons dependent on defense. And everything has come true. Bijan Robinson had a big day for Atlanta. Kirk Cousins, another good game for him. Very comfortable, little pressure on him. And Dak obviously going down with a hamstring injury. CeeDee Lamb now with a shoulder injury. Dallas at 3-5. Now, the difference between, again, Cleveland with potentially, in my opinion, going to DTR and maybe Dallas skipping Cooper Rush and going to Trey Lance, I do think Kevin Stefanski's job security is pretty safe in Cleveland. Even though I don't love all his decision making, he is a two-time coach of the year. Where in Dallas, obviously, Mike McSleepy is coaching for his job. And we saw what Cooper Rush did in 2022, right? Going 5-1 for Dak when he had that busted thumb that collided in week 1 of that season. But this is the Cowboys that I always thought they were. This was the Atlanta team that I always thought they were. And now with Tampa Bay losing, they're 4-5, and New Orleans and Carolina a mess. Atlanta seems to be in command to win that NFC South. Okay, Philadelphia dominated Jacksonville until they didn't. That Saquon Barkley controversial fumble, in my opinion, flipped the game, as well as A.J. Brown leaving the game. Devontae Smith, I already mentioned, made that incredible catch. Him and Garrett Wilson's catches will forever live in time this weekend in Philadelphia and MetLife Stadium. Kobe Dean makes the big play at the end of the game to steal it. Again, a lot of people are on Nick Sirianni for going for two. I think the worst call was they didn't go back to the brotherly shove, which hasn't been as successful this season without Jason Kelsey. It's still successful at 80% of the rate. It may not be, 95 or 99, but still 80% of the time. Um, and Jalen Hurts again doing a good job not turning the football over. The defense getting turnovers. Trevor Lawrence was on a heater in the second half, and Kobe Dean, I already mentioned, made that incredible play. But I want to bring something up here about the Philadelphia Eagles because everybody bangs on Nick Sirianni. They say, Nick Sirianni's trying to lose the game. He's chasing points. He's too aggressive. And in some instances, I agree. When you're dominating a team, you probably want to take field goals, get that two possession lead, make yourself more comfortable. But this is who Nick Sirianni is. He stays true to his colors. And in my opinion, he is as aggressive, if not even a little less aggressive, than Dan Campbell. And everybody loves Dan Campbell because he's a tough guy. He bites off kneecaps. Dan Campbell, with his aggressiveness, cost the Lions, in my opinion, a chance to go to the Super Bowl last year. Dan Campbell can run a fake punt from his own 10-yard line and not get criticized for it. But every time Nick Sirianni goes for 4th and 1 on his, other side of plus territory, he gets criticized for it. I don't get it. Again, Nick Sirianni has the best winning percentage in the NFL right now. Nick Sirianni has the best winning percentage of any Eagles coach in franchise history, and we've had Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. Obviously, Andy Reid now Super Bowl winning head coach multiple times in Kansas City. Doug Peterson in his return to Philadelphia, winning that Super Bowl. So I just don't get the criticism. Jacksonville's a mess. I wouldn't be surprised if later today, or at least at the end of the year, Doug Peterson's out there in Jacksonville. I don't know what the hell is going on with Trevor Lawrence. I don't know what the hell is going on with that Tony Khan led organization. They basically need a reset, in my opinion. Okay. Um, Before the year, I had picked the Chicago Bears to be a playoff team. I had picked the Chicago Bears to be better than the Green Bay Packers, to be second in the NFC North behind Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. But I had one caveat, and that was Matt Eberflus. And DJ Moore is now walking off the field. Caleb Williams pretty much acknowledged they did not get past the Hail Mary last week. There have been multiple shots by not only players in the media, but Caleb Williams' dad now taking shots at the coaching staff. This Chicago team is now turning into what I thought they would be, a talented team with a terrible coach that they cannot overcome, unlike the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, you can make an argument Chicago has as much talent on the offense side of the ball as Philadelphia, and their defense has more experienced players. And now their defense is looking bad, which was the one defense of Matt Eberflus when he was retained last year was, the defense was top 10, the last back half of the year. They gave up a 57-yard run to a third string running back to end the half. And this offense, against a bad Arizona defense, only scored 3 field goals. And Arizona has now won 3 in a row. and they have cemented themselves as legitimate either NFC West or at least NFC wild card picture. This was a team that, again, I thought could win 8, 9 games, compete down to the last weekend here in the NFC. That's kind of who I think they are. But the sad part is Kyler Murray significantly outplayed Caleb Williams this weekend. And not only did Kyler, but Caleb Williams' own draft mate, Drake May, with nothing to work with in New England, has played better football this year than Caleb Williams has in Chicago. It's just an unmitigated disaster. Um, Now you guys want to bang on Nick Sirianni for being too aggressive. How about Mike Macdonald? Seattle had a chance in overtime after Geno Smith drove him down. He had a bad pick six earlier in the game, comes back to Jackson Smith and Jigba, ties the game. We go to overtime, and then they get down to the red zone. They get down to the 10-yard line, and on 4th and 1, instead of kicking the field goal to ensure yourself you at least have the lead, that the only way you lose the game is with a touchdown. That if the Rams kick a field goal, worst thing that could happen to you in a very tight division is you tie, which could benefit you down the line. Seattle goes for it. Wrong decision there. Again, this is the world we live in now, analytics, and I'm always for going for it on 4th and 1, except in a tie game in overtime. To me, you got to take the field goal there. Matthew Stafford was obviously the great throw to Robinson back in the end zone. Great catch to win the game. And the Rams now, all of a sudden, who started 1-4, and again, I bid them here, -1.5 to win this game. They have defeated the Raiders, the Vikings, and Seattle to get back to 4-4 and square even in that NFC West race. Okay, I picked Green Bay to beat Detroit, and I said they were going to do it even with Jordan Love or without Jordan Love. And I'll be honest with you, I think Green Bay might have been better if Malik Willis was out there because Jordan Love did not look healthy. He had another Will Levis-esque interception like he did week 5 against the Rams. And this Green Bay team that was on a roll seemingly got shut down by a Detroit Lions team who was their first time playing outside all year. They were in weather, heavy rain, and the Lions looked like the more prepared team. And great job by Jared Goff, who, again, over the last 6 weeks has more touchdown passes than incompletions. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, they are just running the football down people's throats. And now they add Za'Darius Smith as a pass rusher who I think is going to be able to get after the quarterback and help replace a little bit of Aiden Hutchinson there in Detroit. That Lions team is good. I think, again, my Super Bowl pick this year was Lions Chiefs, and we'll get to the Chiefs in a minute. Um, if you told me today who I thought would win, I really think it depends on who gets the ball last. I think the Chiefs' defense is better. I think Mahomes probably makes a few more plays than Goff. I would lean Kansas City just because of the experience. But that Lions team, they are clearly, in my opinion, the best team in the NFC. And now you got Minnesota. That was a bad loss for Green Bay because after a bad first half, which the Vikings, for whatever reason, the last month, I've talked about it. Usually the first half they start off great, and then in the second half they tailed off. It was the complete opposite, where this game was 7-0 Indianapolis at halftime on a scoop and score. Brian Flores' defense, after getting gashed the last few weeks, really only gave up, 6 points, and one of them was a garbage time field goal so they could get the onside kick to give themselves a chance. But the Colts moved on from Anthony Richardson because he had a 44% completion percentage for the first 8 weeks. Joe Flacco was not much better on Sunday. And Flacco did save the Browns last year, got them to a playoff spot. Maybe he needs to play a little bit more to get more comfortable with this Indianapolis offense. But that was a rough watch. And there's a reason why Bengals Chargers was flexed in the Sunday Night Football in week 11 and why Colts and Jets were flexed out of it. Colts and Minnesota were flexed into this spot over Jacksonville, Philly. Hindsight is 2020, but I think the NFL, looking back at it now, probably with the Eagles going in those Kelly green uniforms, would have rather kept that game on Sunday night. And the Chiefs do what the Chiefs do. Now I gotta admire Tampa. They played a really good game for 3 quarters and 59 minutes or so. Um, Obviously holding down the Kansas City offense. Baker Mayfield without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin, slinging it to Kate Otten and running backs, got to 24 points. They, could have went for two. They could have taken the lead at 25-24 to win the game. Todd Bowles basically said he didn't think about it. There was only 27 seconds left on the clock. The one thing I will say about this situation, though, is that Kansas City did have all 3 timeouts. And for Tampa, yes, it's a wet condition. Yes, you could drop the snap. Yes, the extra point could be no good. But I think it's a bigger risk that you miss the 2 point conversion in that scenario than if you miss the extra point. And if you don't get it, you're out of timeouts. The game is over. And no matter what, 27 seconds with all 3 timeouts is an eternity for Kansas City. Now, Kansas City did not get in field goal range, and hindsight is 2020. Kareem Hunt did take the ball down. They did score. The Chiefs do remain unbeaten. And I'm here to say their first loss will come in week 11 when they go to Buffalo. And again, for Tampa, it's just been a year of some weird losses, some close losses the last couple of weeks to Atlanta, now to Kansas City. They obviously got beat down by Denver in week 3, which, is their worst loss of the year by far. Now they're only looking at a wild card shot in the NFC, which Chris Godwin's out for the year. Mike Evans is coming back, but maybe not till about Thanksgiving or possibly a little bit before. So, gritty Tampa Bay effort. Todd Bowles' team did good. Bottom line is Mahomes in Kansas City and that defense made plays when they had to. The Chiefs are champions for a reason. They win the game. I don't know why people are crushing Todd Bowles. I get it. You're on the road. You want to knock off Kansas City. But again, without your 2 receivers, you're on the road in the rain. If you win the coin toss, you never know what happens. If you lose the coin toss, obviously, you never know what happens. I don't know. I'm pretty indifferent on that situation. So we did go 10-5 in the money line. My misses in the money line were New England, New Orleans, Chicago, Green Bay, and then Houston Thursday night against the Jets. I mentioned we went 3 for 5 in best bets with New England plus 3.5, Rams minus 1.5, Minnesota minus 5.5. We missed Buffalo minus 6.5 and Chicago plus 1.5 on Thursday. I'll recap the NFL trade deadline. Boy, what a massive addition DeAndre Hopkins was for Kansas City, huh? Who would have thought going from Will Levis to Patrick Mahomes, a pretty big upgrade. So we'll recap that as well as the NFL trade deadline and my week 10 money line picks and best bets. Like that clip from the Brand Sports Podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand Sports Podcast right here on YouTube.